You almost had me.
That's gonna be great. It's actually it's gonna be delightful. Everyone's gonna be excited and like, oh, we finally heard him sing. We've been waiting. But
The
yeah,
moment was almost there. Sorry, guys.
almost.
Well,
So
we're live. Is that
we are.
right? We're
I think
live.
so.
Hey,
And
guys.
it hasn't been a month.
Welcome
So
back to Testing Normal, episode 140.
140. That seems kind of weird.
140.
Is that too many? Like,
It seems like we have been through a lot of experiences in 140 episodes. Like the amount of things that have changed in our world in 140 episodes is pretty remarkable, right?
well, it's like, what was that picture I sent you like a couple hours ago? And it was Alex Jones on The View.
Right.
And that was 10 years ago. Alex Jones
Right.
was on The View,
Right,
folks.
right. How crazy is that? That now, we have a uh I was talking with Jordan about this. We have a world where everything you do and say is so much more scrutinized, but also it's all recorded, right? So everything Jordan and I say 10
Yeah.
years from now
Yeah.
might not be the standard, right? And so you have to think about, okay, am I saying what I'm saying, and is this going to be something that holds up in 10 years, right?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Like, I don't know. I guess there are things that are, but there's like opinions that they wouldn't be the same. They might still be the same for our circumstances,
Right.
but they may not be the same then. I don't fear because I don't really care. I mean, I care. I hope it doesn't happen, but like, there's like tons of words. Like this week, they changed what groomer meant, and like, there's a ton of websites and stuff that are like
Oh,
blocking
really?
it, and it's meant like obviously pet groomer, right? But it's an adult who is like conditioning kids to like not tell their parents about maybe bad things that they would do to them, and they're like, sorry, that's mean, and it's segregating this whole group of people. I'm like, no, because maybe some of those people are in there, but there's people in this other groups that are those people that are groomers too. Like, we're not, like, that's the thing, we have that for a reason, we talk about that for a reason, we let our kids know these things for a reason. Let's just not change it. Like, it's meant to be bad. It's not. It's
Right.
that's what people are doing. Call it what it is. Um, and so there are some things I hope don't change, like that.
Well, I always think about this is something I kind of always have a throwback to is watching the is it like Good Morning America or something video where Katie Couric is questioning what the @ sign means
Oh yeah,
for
we've talked about that before. Like
for
for
websites,
email,
yeah.
like, what is that? I don't know. It's the
What is that? What's
whatever.
that?
Yeah,
Is that a sign mean? Is it at?
yeah.
Is it
Well, what
is
is
it
it used for before email? Does anyone know? Like,
was it around before email?
I feel like it was a character. I don't know. Like, I mean, they knew
Hmm.
to call it the @ symbol, so was it that? I feel like it's a very complex symbol to shorten
Hmm.
such a short word. You know what I mean? It's like we don't want to shorten @ much further than at.
Well, that actually brings me to my first shower thought of the day.
We're doing shower thoughts first.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm gonna
perfect.
I'm gonna hit us off here.
Good.
And the first shower thought of the day is you've probably used more colons than semicolons when typing, which is why it's weird that the colon requires a shift to access it on most keyboards, while semicolons don't.
But I know why. Well, actually, I don't know. On a standard keyboard now, most programmers who do a lot of typing would use a semicolon much more than a colon.
But
Um,
programming aside,
yes, but programming was like one of the main things that would be done on a keyboard back in the day when it was like setting them
hmm,
up to do certain things for people.
perhaps so
Um,
maybe
but
this is a
I don't know if that's new to the typewriter or not. That's where I don't know.
right, right. So perhaps it's a standard that was implemented for a reason that's not as applicable at this moment in day and
Yeah,
age. Interesting.
maybe they used a lot more colons back in the day.
or semicolons.
I mean semicolons, yeah.
Semicolons. I I I don't recall a time that I used a semicolon. I don't think I ever
Really?
use semicolons. I use
I've
colons
I
quite
mean
frequently.
I have encoding more than anything.
But like in standard emails, or if you're doing like, a write out or like a long thing, are you using semicolons?
Occasionally, but no, I mean really not that often.
Yeah,
Like
almost never,
I
man.
here's why I think though. I think a lot more people would use them, but we're really bad at grammar. I
Mm-hmm.
think that people overuse commas where semicolon should be used.
Could be. Yeah,
So I
it's
think
fair.
it's just that we're kind of dumber, maybe.
um, well, autocorrect saves us all, right? Grammarly is where it's at. Um,
Yeah, maybe.
all right. Do you have another shower thought,
Oh, I didn't have it. I didn't say one yet.
or do you have a shower thought?
I
Oh, you
do.
do. You
Yes.
have three.
I
Okay,
have
we're
three
good.
just like you. Yeah.
Nice.
Underwear and socks come in resealable bags, but cereal and potato chips don't.
Great point, and that is the most annoying thing in the world.
I always put my underwear back in the original bag I got them.
Only if I use them.
Yeah. I actually only when I put them in the washing machine.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a silly thing. Um, More than 90% of Earth for you is farther than the International Space Station.
Yeah.
I thought that's kind of a fun thought. It's all about positioning.
Yeah, and plus it's moving around the earth a lot.
True.
Um you never see commercials for the companies that make commercials.
Okay. That's fascinating. And that just makes me think instantly of Jake's company. I think.
Yes. Yeah, I would say there's a caveat to this. There are some targeted ads now that will be like, we'll make your video, but they're not specifically like we're a commercial making company, right?
Right. Right.
We're
Yeah.
talking like the poorly produced, horrible ones that you see basically only in the hotel cable TVs nowadays.
Yes.
We
Yes.
we went on vacation like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, Michael, my second son, I was like, we're gonna turn on TV and just see what this is like. And it is a
A
it's a
grind.
challenge,
Yeah.
like to
To deal with
watch.
commercials. Commercials
Yeah.
are really tough now, man. Especially long. Like we can do one, like YouTube has conditioned us, if you don't pay for this premium service.
Right.
YouTube has conditioned you to like get used to having 15-second commercial, right? But on TV, you're dealing with like 3 minutes of commercials.
Well, and they're terrible. It's like
Yeah.
so like I remember like some of the first ads that I saw on YouTube. They like they were funny, right? Because they had to be captivating because you could skip
Hmm.
them, right? And you go to watch a TV commercial, like they need to pay the people that make the YouTube ones to make these. These guys shouldn't be making commercials anymore.
They're
Um,
terrible.
but maybe they're cheaper now that they don't get seen as much.
I remember growing up thinking many times when I see a bad ad, thinking, this commercial is so annoying or so bad. I will fervently make a effort never to purchase anything from that company because how annoying
Yes.
this ad is right now.
That's so good. I by the way, I just looked up an old typewriter.
Hmm.
For sure the colon and semicolon are in the same places, at least on this old one. So I don't know. I
Mm,
like I said, I'm gonna stick by my guess of they probably
coding.
used them a lot more back in the day and knew grammar, and they kept it that way because and actually probably coding used the semicolon versus the colon because it was easier to type.
Mm,
that
could
would
be.
that would also be my guess. Anyway,
All right, hit me.
I just did. I just did one.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's you. Yeah.
Sorry guys. Last shower thought from me is web browsing feels like the most private activity when you're doing it, but it's actually the most public activity thanks to data collection nowadays.
It's true. Unless you're using a VPN, like not our sponsor, TourGuard VPN.
Hmm.
Um, yes. Uh, the glass that the Kool-Aid Man is made of seems to be stronger than most walls.
Yeah, it is. Ironically, for some strange reason. It
I
very
hope
much
that I
so
hope
is.
I think most of our people that listen to this would understand that. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh
Hmm.
man. Well, let's see here, guys. What's been going on? A couple little of the light things we'll hit you with for
Yeah.
this week. I'm not sure if everybody saw this on the news, but it was shocking. And sorry, apologize for the pun, but it's horrible.
Hits like a bolt.
Yeah, that there was a lightning strike near the White House this past week. It killed 3 people. This one lightning strike killed 3 people, and another
Whoa.
one was in critical condition after being struck at a park that's just right next to the White House. Um,
75
and
and 76-year-old.
and
Looks like
also
they
a
were
29-year-old,
married. Yeah, those are the first two I saw. And the third was the
76-year-old, 75-year-old, and a 29-year-old passed away from
Lafayette
this
Park.
lightning bolt. That, which is what's strange about it. Obviously, it's crazy to get struck by lightning. Then it's crazy to die from it.
Hmm.
But what's even more crazy is that 3 people did in the same location, and then on top of that, that it happened right next to our White House.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's a big swamp. So it's a giant conductor.
Yeah, it kind of puts off a vibe of the like, what if there's some type of like, you know, mm, weather weapon out there for channeling electricity and
I think
or it
maybe.
was like Putin was talking to Biden, on the phone, and Biden's like, listen, we're out of reach, man. You can't do anything. You can't launch nukes. You can't do anything. And Putin says, true, I cannot do that, but watch
But
this.
watch
Look out
this.
your window. Look out your window.
Well, there was big arguments. You guys can look it up. This is just random knowledge, but like there's big arguments among farmers decades ago about cloud seeding and who
Mm-hmm.
was getting
Yeah.
the rain before other ones and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it beyond that. Um, but people have been trying to control the weather for a while, so it's not. I don't think it's out of the question. Um, and if someone had that button, it would be either Xi or Putin. So, um,
Mm-hmm. Which is sad. Um, Speaking of chi and connecting this a little bit to China, and this next article I posted was talking about the number of electric vehicles that have been sold
yeah,
worldwide, and there's kind of a fun visualization that you'll be able to pull up here, and it shows, um, well, for last year in the U.S. EV
hmm,
sales and their Tesla, I mean, like dramatically outsold most of the market in the US this last year. Tesla sold 200,000 Model Ys, 150,000 Model 3s, and then the closest competitor was Ford with like 25,000 Ford Mustang Mach-E's.
but you and I did go drive
But if
one.
you go,
I wasn't.
which was
It was
a
cool.
blast, it was fun.
It definitely wasn't to the
Yeah,
same level.
it was nowhere near as fun as the
No,
Tesla was, though,
no, and it
right?
just didn't. It seemed. It felt. I mean, it's not cheap, but it comparatively for the money, it felt cheap.
It felt like technologically it just wasn't in the same stratosphere.
Yes,
Like the software and the way, I would say the craftsmanship in the Mustang was at par, maybe even nicer, but the degree of software was so far superior in the Tesla with that
I
specific
know,
comparison
and
that
that's
it,
the
it
draw
made
for
it
me. It's like
feel less
okay, so
valuable.
like electric motors for sure. They're more they're faster. They're more whatever. They're more speed, power, torque. Um,
Hmm.
but beyond that, it's like you're driving a computer, so you kind of expect that. You're like, well, I bought a spaceship. I want it to act like a spaceship, and
Right.
the Mach-E was definitely not. It was not on
Not
spaceship
not on
level.
par.
So
But so in this next image here, I wanted to show this was kind of surprising to me. Now, granted, I know China has, what is it? Are they at a billion? They're at a billion, right? Maybe a little more than a billion. They're not at 2 billion, I don't think. China population. Let me see
I think
here.
they are.
Are they? I know, I thought India maybe
Oh,
was,
maybe.
but let's see. Chinese population. Yeah, so Chinese population is 1.4 billion. India population, I think India's at 1 point, yeah, 1.4. They're both about 1.4. Um, but China had a impressive number of EV sales when you look at the rest of the world. I was kind of
Well, I
surprised
mean,
by this.
yeah, they have more
So
people, but
they have more people, totally. But look at the exponential growth. This was what was surprising to me. If you look at 2021, the number of units like just shoots off the charts for the number of EV vehicles that are sold. But when you compare the rest of the world, most of those numbers are in the decline. And that was kind of interesting to me. I would not have guessed China to have that much of an incline of EV sales in comparison to the
I
rest
think
of the world
the one
based on
difference
its
though,
growth.
especially for the US, right? Cuz even though we're like
Hmm.
one of the smaller populations, we're one of the bigger consumers. Like we're just a richer country per
Yeah,
capita, right? Like that's just the way it is. Like if you feel bad about that, then don't live here. But we also are more spread out. So we face the same problem with EV that we did with mobile phones, that we still face with mobile phones. Like Japan had video calling a decade before we did. The most countries had blanketed service long before we did, and way better than we still do, because we are so spread out. We have so much more land
hmm
per person that that's where, like, I don't know, until they do something drastic, there's no way they can replace long haul trucking with EVs, because they can't charge quick enough. They can't they don't have the distance when they put that much weight
hmm
on them. And we just don't have another alternative that is going to be, because we have so much land to cover. You can't just use ports, right? So there's just some logistics. Even with trains, like say you put trains up, there's still places they can't go that are still a long ways, and some of those trucks are driving thousands of miles on one fill. um, to replace that with EV, it takes too much time. It would slow
There'd
everything
have
to
to
a halt.
be.
If we think supply chains are crunching now with less workers and less things coming in and everything, imagine if they had to stop, and instead of filling up and taking off, they had to wait 12 hours.
Yeah, it's not ready. It's obviously, I don't think anyone's arguing that
No.
it's totally ready for the industrial world, right? Um, but I think that one potential upside um, is, well, upside for Tesla, right? Is that they're looking at opening their charging stations, and that's not really
Mm-hmm.
industrial, but looking at charging, they're opening their charging stations for competitors, which I think, as for our market cap, they have kind of the best charging options out
Yeah.
there right now. Um, but I think it might have to be something, if they decide to pursue this from a federal side of things, where they are installing more of these, or a state, either a state or federal installation of those types of units, if they want to be
Well, I still
industrial
think you run into
uh,
some of those limitations,
component.
like we're gonna be we've you and I have both traveled a bit this year, right? Imagine having to stop, instead of like
Hmm.
if you pull over to fill a tank, it takes what, 5-10 minutes, and you keep going, and you don't have to, like, you're not having to make these constant stops where you have to wait. It's not like filling a gas tank. So there are some logistics there.
It'd be a paradigm
It would
shift.
be.
It'd be a
And
paradigm
so
shift,
there would
right?
have to be some things changed there. I get it. So China also, as to say, is like, some of those countries are so compacted, they're not making as long of trips. Whereas, like,
Well, but also they have a different methods of
yes.
transportation, right? So a lot of countries have invested in their infrastructure with
Mm-hmm.
speed trains, right? Like you and I both, when we were in traveling down to Pompeii, we were on a speed train and it was going, I can't remember, I think it was like close to
It
100
was
miles per
like
hour or
84 or
something along those
87.
lines.
It was wild. Um,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was cooking. It was cooking. And it didn't seem like this crazy of a concept, but that's an unfortunate thing that I feel like the US um, doesn't have the travel
Well,
infrastructure that the rest of
I think
these
too,
other countries
though,
have.
we run into the same thing where we are more spread out. We have way more rural areas,
Hmm.
and so it it may not be the solution that works. I think so what I was going to bring, because we'll call this electricity segment. The one that there was an article that I was reading that I'll pull up, is Europe's energy crisis. So they're having a struggle with electricity. And Spain
Mm.
bans air conditioning from dropping below 27 degrees Celsius. So, so
Ooh, fascinating.
just as a fun little thing, what is that Fahrenheit?
Wait, say that again.
27 degrees
27 degrees
Celsius. They're
Celsius?
having a freak out about this, by the way.
Okay, because I could Google it, but I'm not going to. So I'm gonna say, oh, dude, it's lightning outside. It's like a
Yeah,
dry.
it's crazy.
Oh, that's cool. It looks like it's like a, guys, right now it's a, what do you call it? It's like a dry thunderstorm
It
right
is
now.
raining,
I can't
or it was.
I'm gonna say 27 degrees Celsius is 65 degrees Fahrenheit.
80
What is it?
degrees. So
Ooh,
this is their one of their solutions. So I guess my question is, if even they're
that's
struggling with their
tough.
grid, and we talked about our grid this last time
Mhm.
as well, is what we need to be focusing on EVs, or do we need to be focusing on grid first and then ramp up the EVs? Because if also I got curious because I had this one, you had a couple other ones, so I was like, what is I'm curious what's going on with power. Like what are we powering things with? So are we being better by charging our cars because of our electricity grid? Well, our total fossil fuels that power our electricity in the country currently right now is 60%. So that means over half of the electricity we create and use is fossil fuels anyway. So if we move
Mhm.
electric cars over to that, the renewable use is only 20% of that. So the rest is like hydropower and things like that. So Oregon's actually doing pretty good, but as a populace in our country, we aren't really changing much if we just all decide to switch to EVs tomorrow. And plus our grid can't take it. So I was thinking about today, I was thinking about this week. I was like, I like electric cars for the reasons we listed before. Like they're a spaceship, they go fast. If you could solve some of these, fill it up quicker, especially for countries like ours where we're not going to stop driving, people aren't going to stop traveling. Um, and it's getting to the point now where people are being charged because they're realizing all these EVs, they're getting charged a ton more to renew their licenses. And so between that and the electricity cost, especially because as this is something that people is unpopular to talk about, but like people are upset with fuel costs. They're like, well, go buy an EV. Well, that's not a good solution to say, like, I can't afford gas. So why would I be able to afford a brand new EV that's going to work with electricity instead? But if you do the math, they're not really saving anything. It would actually cost them.
It depends on how much.
It,
Depends on how much they spend on an
this
EV
is
too, though.
true. This is true. But if they got something that was a like model that would handle a family, let's so like take people from our area that tend to have a few more kids. Um, they're not gonna. They're gonna actually spend more money.
Well, I don't think it's not. I don't think that's a crazy concept to say. Like, I think majority of people would recognize EV vehicles are not for
Right. No, but
the
I guess,
masses
and I know
yet,
you're not saying that, but I'm
as far as
saying
cost
that's
goes.
what's being championed is like we need to go to this to save things. Really? What if we're focused? I
Well,
guess
it's
I'm an IT person, so I like to focus on what the problem actually is. So if the problem is where we're is how we're using our energy, if we move
mhm,
to EV cars right now and our grid can't handle it, that's problem number one. But problem number two
right. It's
is
a start.
we're still burning 60% fossil fuels to create our electricity with failing grids. So why not work on that and then let the EV stuff catch up that will allow people to keep doing what they're doing. And then it will make it more
It's
cost
kind of
effective
honestly, it's
and
like
make it so that people want to
it's
do
a
it.
double-edged sword because you kind of have to get that. I think if you look at it from the other side, to motivate and incentivize those things to happen and to maybe like incentivize the voters to like say, hey, yeah, I'll vote that we put money towards infrastructure. You almost have to give them a carrot and show them why or what could possibly benefit them or what could they enjoy from that benefit of
Right. But I guess
infrastructure
what I'm saying right
development.
now,
And
mathematically, they're
that's
not.
a hard thing to like,
It's
and that's it's unfortunate, but it's a possible avenue towards that
it
in my
could
mind.
be, but the problem
Um,
is too like
I think the biggest thing with infrastructure though is the simple, especially in Oregon, is the simple evidence of if you don't invest in your infrastructure, you're not going to have power because when there's
Right.
a storm, you're going to be without power for six
Yeah,
days,
could you
and that's
imagine
horrible.
having an
Like
electric
that's
vehicle when we had ice
obvious.
storms last year?
Well, and that's where it's like, okay, you have an EV. Well, even gas though. Some of these gas stations, they weren't able to pump their gas. I had a station that I went to that was because they were out of electricity for like 3 days, and they shut
Mhm.
down too. So it's like even gas isn't really a great option if the power's out for a
Yes,
long
but
enough time, unless you
I
have
can
a
go
big
and get
tank.
it and bring it back, where I can't do that with electricity very well.
Well, you can if you have natural gas at your
True,
house, because
but that's
luckily that stuff
that's
stays
not
on for
electricity. Or that's
four to
going up in
five.
price too because they're trying to like push it. But a lot of our electricity comes from natural gas too. It's like I guess I
There's got to be
yeah,
diversification for
and I
sure.
don't. I guess if it can't handle if people are struggling now, if countries are struggling now, imagine adding cars to having to use that as well before they're ready. And so it's like that's a problem. Like to think about.
Yeah, I think you also, I mean, but we've seen clearly it's not good to have all of your eggs in one basket, right? I mean, we saw in the 80s, was it the 80s or no, it was the 70s where there was the gas crunch, right? And Saudi shut down its reserves, and there was this like whole jockeying of natural
Your
of
dad is
gasoline
saying
at that
we
point.
missed his comments here, but I'll go back and
Uh,
is this including EV bikes? I don't know what that's in reference to. Um, overhead power lines,
oh man, I didn't see
overhead
these
power lines
comments
for
for a little
trucks
bit.
and trains. So that goes back to kind of what we were talking about before. Is a
Mm,
lot of these fires we had caused were from those, and so that's kind of a I struggle with that. Maybe in cities, but in rural areas they're known anything overhead I would like to see underground because that's what caused a lot of what we saw here in the canyon a few years ago. And he's saying we need more nuclear power.
I
Agreed. I
am a huge advocate of nuclear power. Um, to Katie Patty, she mentioned that they were having rain at their softball game tonight, and I'm literally looking out my window and I'm seeing lightning going off. So that's kind of a
I
wild
don't
thing.
see her
But
comments,
um,
but
yeah,
I
it's so weird. Like comments sometimes show up and sometimes don't on my side too. Um,
oh no.
the nuclear power though, to James's point, I think from a federal level, that should be an initiative. And I'm disappointed that that's not more of a priority
Yeah, I have mixed feelings. um
with nuclear.
No, not with nuclear. I do think we need that. That needs to happen. I think it can happen safer than it's been. We're not Russia. We shouldn't be lying about things. We could do it right. We have the ability to do self-contained nuclear power at people's private residences in the middle of nowhere at this point. I think
Yeah.
it's ridiculous that we don't. Quite frankly, it's at this point it would be more sustainable to deal with that than it would be the way that we dispose of and mine lithium for batteries. Like it just is. Like I know that there are sustainable ways to do it and Elon has some great plans for that, but it's quite frankly not happening yet. And until it does, it's not an, it's worse. It's not any better at all. It's not even a tie with the most gas guzzling truck out there. It should be. I think it could be, but it's not. If you go and look and see, it should, but it sadly is not. And that's this it's that annoys me the most is when we have this technology and this ability to do something and people are
Yeah.
doing a shitty job
Agreed.
at it. Like they're not they're
Hmm.
championing it and doing it the cheapest way possible and not making it what it could be. That's annoying because it could be way better than it is. And part of why it is because they slammed it for so many years. I don't think they should slam it. I don't think they should put a kibosh on it, but I don't think that they need to drive oil through the roof in prices and have us be shipping oil across country, across oceans and stuff and taxing our grid to do it. I think there's a better way to do it and a more sustainable way to do it to make that switch than basically like bullying people into it before it's time.
Well, one thing that I will say that is at least less
Mm-hmm.
controversial, I will say, and this can be our last subject for the night. Um, at least I could say it's less controversial, is um, the former president of the United States, one of his compounds or establishments where he resides,
66,000 square
got
foot compound, by the way.
raided by the FBI the uh, under the utilization of a search warrant,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Not a subpoena or anything along those lines, which I don't know if that would work for going into somebody's home, but under use of a search warrant. And yeah, just curious about your thoughts on that, Jordan, because I'm sure you
Yeah,
have
of course I do.
thoughts.
Yeah, so this was interesting. It was a couple. I deep deep dive into this the last couple days and chatting with some friends about it that have sending back and forth just different sources and stuff. And I have a couple quotes from people that might shock you. But number one, Trump was not at his estate when this happened. It took place. I believe, he
Right.
was in D.C. or New York or somewhere. And it's a 66,000 square foot place, and they raided it. He had like a brand new safe. They safe cracked it. Apparently, there was nothing in that safe. It was under the guise of he had some restricted documents that they had asked for when he left as president that he hadn't returned. To which my number one observation is, it's been 2 years. He actually is privy to them still. He has rights to them. Um, but why now? That's weird. Um, and why in such a way? Number one, that's odd. I'm sure they had backups and copies of whatever he had. So that seems a little bit strange to do this, but this is the first time in history that someone has done this, except if you want to count when Obama launched his investigation against his opponent in back in 2016. So I guess this is a little bit terrifying, and I think both sides, right or left, should be like, this is not a good thing. And I think that this will end up being something that backfires for those that have launched this. And I think that this, I'm not saying this is I actually, I wish that like Ron DeSantis would run or something. I think this will push Trump to win. Not only do I think it will Trump push him to win, I think this could basically hand him the presidency on a silver platter. Um, and
It depends on how much media
it
coverage
depends
it
on how
gets.
much it gets, but with what's been going on, so here's a quote from Andrew Yang. Okay, this is kind of the moderate side of things. Actually, I wouldn't consider him. He's moderate left leaning, but semi sane, but just a little bit strange. Um,
I almost see independent.
ish. I don't know. He
Yeah.
wavers all over the place. Anyway, he said, "I'm no Trump fan. I want him as far away from the White House as possible. But a fundamental part of his appeal has been that it's him against a corrupt government establishment. This raid strengthens that case for millions of Americans who will see
Mm.
this as unjust persecution. It seems like this was authorized by a local judge and a particular FBI office without buy in or notification of higher levels of government. But literally no one will believe that or make a distinction. It's probably bureaucratic, but it seems political." Um, he went on to say, like many people have said, that he believes this will hand him the presidency in 2024. That's his opinion. I'm just stating what I read and what I found from him.
Hmm.
And probably the person you'll never hear me quote, probably never quote again unless I'm laughing at him, because I think he's literally one of the most unintelligent people in all of television or politics.
Who?
Andrew Cuomo said that the department, he
Hmm.
said this yesterday, he said that, or no, he said this morning at 6 a.m. our time. He said the Department of Justice must immediately explain the reason for its raid, and it must be more than a research or inconsequential or for inconsequential archives, or it will be viewed as a political tactic and undermine any future credible investigation and legitimacy of the January 6th investigations, which, by the way, side note, are some of the poorest ratings in TV right now, and I think that's probably why they are doing this to kind of parade things a little bit more, but I think it's going to blow up. And he'd gone on to say some other things, but that were interesting. Oh, he quoted on his own. He said they must immediately explain. This is later than this. He said the Department of Justice must immediately explain the reason for its raid, and it must be more. Or he, why is he quoting his same thing? That's weird. Anyway, he he goes on to say some of the same things that Yang does. That like this is not this number one. This isn't good. Number two, this isn't good for anyone. It's not even good for their political position, and it's probably going to hand it to them. It's just to me, I describe this to say to today as someone because we have primaries going on right now. We have
Mm-hmm.
midterms coming up, and currently this is also coming off a week of just about every single person that Trump endorsed has been winning, even against Republican incumbents that were voting Democratic. People he is endorsing are, again, just stating what's going on, and then this happens. It is lining up that the people that voted to try and do some weird things, granted Trump did too, are going to be removed or are in the process of being removed, and that there is a basically a ramping up of conservatives being voted in to potentially take both the House and the Senate come midterms, full midterms. And I
Mm.
think that's so. What I described this was, and what it looks like to me is, as if someone's drowning. They're literally their decision making is gone, and this is just the last clause of people trying to make something happen. And I don't think this is benefiting anybody. It doesn't benefit any people left, right. It doesn't benefit their perspective.
Well, here's what I'd say about this. There's a couple thoughts. On the side of having um, a protected um, a degree of protection by nature of making decisions as a president that are beyond the political
Yeah.
spectrum, right? That are beyond appealing to one political side. There's a precedence that this sets that puts that in jeopardy. Um, Now, also to that same component, essentially, I was reading about this, and in order for the FBI to have raided the Mar-Lago, uh, what are we calling it? It's compound or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. Like it's not a
No,
house, but I don't even know what you would
a
call that
state.
that mm,
Let's call it an estate.
palatial yeah, palatial estate. Um, it took the um not the was it attorney general, not the attorney general, it took the DOJ, Department of Justice, the head of the DOJ, to agree to issue and
Yeah.
allow a search warrant to take place in order for this to happen. Now, the reason I have trepidation with that is if it's someone that was appointed by the opposing
Mm-hmm.
party, that's where you have this area of potential conflict of interest in that
Yep.
situation. And because of that, I I would only I would hope that it would be something that would come from an impartial party or impartial entity if decisions like that were going to be made. Whether, and I don't know who or what that would look like to say, if is that the Supreme Court or
I think
whatever.
our
I don't know.
intelligence is corrupted,
Um,
and this should be considered wrong on all sides. Even if you don't like Trump,
well,
it breaks constitutional rights that are important.
now here's what I would say though. Here's what I would say. I don't agree with the president having ultimate, even after especially after
Yeah.
they've ran, having ultimate privileges and ultimate power and ultimate say in being able to get away with
No.
whatever they want. So I do think there needs to be a degree of accountability for a former president, and there should be something that qualifies and allows for their house to be rated if it meets these certain
Yeah.
standards.
It's
But
pretty far beyond these
but
though.
the standards, what are those standards and what are those guidelines? Like obviously, if he had a bunch of underage kids
Yeah.
locked in a basement, I don't think anybody would say this is
It'd
this
be a good
shouldn't
idea.
happen, or if he had anybody, not just underage kids, like if he had
Right.
anybody locked in his basement, right? Um, but so I think that there is a standard and there is a reason to uh, pursue a search warrant, but we I and granted, no one knows actually what that search warrant is right now and what that actually says. So kind of alluding to what you were saying with quote Cuomo, it better be something that is not perceived as a political game, because otherwise the
It's over.
Democratic Party just shot
Yeah,
themselves in the
a lot of
in the
people have
foot.
said that, even, and this is not, this is both sides saying this, like, this isn't, and they're not saying it from a haha got you. They're saying, like, from a chess move, political, like, choices, this has the potential to set that party back decades. Like, this will be like a date that could be remembered as, like, that did it. That's what did it.
Mm.
They took it too far. They took their establishment power too far. And I mean, if I could, like, put my hand or throw a coin in a wishing well, I would say I hope this disbands both intelligence and the FED eventually. Like, if we could get back our gold standard and stop having them be able to just willy nilly print money, and also gain back the spying on American people, that would be good. We would have to gone through like a crappy time where we could say, like, yeah, we had really high gas prices because the dude was just didn't want to be energy independent, and he also started building Trump's wall in the same week. That's weird because they started doing that too. That's not in anything
It's
I have, but they started rebuilding the wall because it's election season and Arizona was upset, so they're building a section in Arizona still.
Yeah, I'd heard that the Speaker of the House, not Speaker of House, the White House representative, or
I
oh,
was
sorry
like,
about that.
is someone with you
That's weird.
talking? Someone sneaking up on you, brother?
What's going on there?
Get him.
Um, I heard them talking about that. I don't know the details about it. There
Yeah,
was something
there's a
along the
section that
lines
they
that it wasn't the
no,
whole wall they were building, but there was a
correct. Yeah,
portion
I've
where they
heard
were
incorrect quotes that it's the whole
reconstructing or
wall, but I
something.
mean, it is the wall, and they said, like, we're not going to do this. Okay, maybe, I mean, people can change their mind and be like, oh, it's a good idea now. It sure seems suspect that they're doing a bunch of these things when
It's
midterms
political
are
jockeying on
looking
all
awful
sides.
for their
So
party right now. Like, it's looking,
yeah, it's all political jockeying, and in this situation, doesn't seem like the most
so,
beneficial
and then it's
political
also
move.
just like, as a side note, kind of like, this happened in the same week, is like this $800 billion spending bill that is to hire an 87,000 more IRS agents, aimed aimed
Ugh.
okay,
Mm,
let me finish. It gets worse.
mm,
Aimed at
mm.
specifically middle income homes, and 70,000 of them are already going to be actually armed.
Give me your
Exactly.
money.
Like, that's weird, right? Like, say what you want, that's strange. Like, so you're bleeding money, you're printing money, and you're hiring more people to go take more money when you ran on a platform that says, I will not tax people below this income bracket, and they're already proposing that it's going to be all the way down the line. And some people are like, well, it's only like $30 more per month for this income. Like, he said none. Okay? He said none. 30 bucks is 30 bucks to somebody who doesn't make a lot.
Well, I have, my feelings about the IRS in general. I mean, the entire concept is a bloated pig
But
feeding
on the
another
record,
bloated
they're
pig. Like
amazing
it's
people if they're listening to this.
I mean, granted they could ruin and destroy our lives, right? But that's also why I don't like them. They have It's such a gross mismanagement of taxation in general. I agree there needs to be certain taxation, but the way we do it, I don't agree with it at all. Flat tax or sales tax in general, in my opinion, is the only way of doing it. And
My
once you do
opinion
that,
is
you
the only
eliminate the
way. Yeah,
IRS.
no, yeah, you
And
don't have to have them.
once you eliminate the IRS, then you save hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's such a simple
Yeah. My
solution.
dad told me about a book that he read, and if he's listening with my mom, he can chime in. um, where it's like a president gets elected, and he came in and he said he brought, I think it was to the Oval Office, and he had them put the tax code onto the the desk, and they just kept bringing them and bringing them and bringing them and stacking them until the desk broke. And he's like, "That's what we're gonna fix." And I'm highly paraphrasing and way shortening that story, but the fact that somebody wrote that and that the tax code actually weighs that much in paper is way too complex. It is way too much. Like, yeah.
It's silly. It's silly.
So
All right, guys, that's what we got for the concepts, the discussions, the thoughts, the hopes, the dreams. We do have some TILs though we want to
we
hit you
do.
with tonight. And let me pull up my old TIL
Here, I'll go
levers
first.
here. All right, we each got ghosts.
Yeah.
Get me, buddy.
Today I learned, oh, goodness, like my body decided it didn't want to read, that in the 1950s, there used to be a bus route, speaking of other forms of transportation, from London, England to Calcutta, India. It took about 50 days for the bus to reach Calcutta from London.
Oh my gosh, what a
Can
smelly
you
ride.
imagine? Yeah. Like
Smelly ride. And are they sleeping
imagine
on
there
the
was no
bus?
AC or little to none.
And also, why would you want to go to Calcutta from? I don't know.
There's enough people wanting to do it.
I guess so. I actually have no idea about Calcutta. It might be a delightful place. I'm just
Now,
saying.
I bet it wasn't then.
Um, right. Could be. Or it might have been better then and worse now. Today I learned that cats' teeth have a blood groove that prevents suction when they bite. This allows them to pull out and bite again more quickly. It's like, huh. All right, kitty cats, you vicious,
One more
dirty
reason I don't
animals, you.
like cats and think they're disgusting.
One more reason.
Um, Today I learned white and orange/yellow cheddar are the same cheese, except that one uses coloring.
Hmm. Interesting.
I, I
I think there's like a lots of different types of
I'm
white
sure there's different
colored
brands
cheeses
of
though.
cheddar cheeses, obviously, and they all taste different. And
But
Tillamook
there's
is the
like goat
best. But
cheese versus
um,
yeah. Yeah, that's
what was the?
interesting.
We had a lot of cheese to choose from
We
the other
did. We
night.
had a charcuterie board the other night, guys. It was delightful. I was also surprised that I was thinking like there's no way we're going to be
Well,
able to eat all of this
apparently we were
charcuterie.
there for way longer than I thought too. So
It was perfect, but I was like at the end I told my wife I was like, "Babe, you made the perfect amount." I was
we
wrong.
just
I had no
we just
idea.
kept snacking and laughing, and it's
It was
great.
perfect.
I wanted to
Perfect.
at one point just to
All
weird
right.
her out, like put the um put the chocolate onto like a cheese and cracker, but I didn't.
That actually might have tasted good.
Like, don't, you can't tell me how to eat
All right,
this.
guys. You don't tell me what to eat. It's my chocolate. Today I learned humans swallow between 500 and 700 times a day. That's around 3 times an hour when you're sleeping as well, which is kind of a crazy concept to think about. You're autonomically swallowing when
I
you're
learned
sleeping.
something. Maybe you can explain this. Have you ever tried to
Hmm.
swallow like consecutively more than three
Yeah,
times?
I have. I've heard it, and you
You can, but
can,
it's
but
really difficult.
it's
You get to
it's much
three and
more
you're like,
difficult. Yes.
I might choke to death. Like,
Yeah, it's certainly more difficult. It's certainly more difficult, but you can.
if you do it, so the people that
Um,
cheat are the ones that are like, see, I swallowed. See, I swallowed. See, I swallowed. No, you got to do it like 1, 2, 3, and try to hit that fourth one. And it feels
it's really
weird.
hard.
Try it, people.
It feels like
Yeah,
you're
it
choking.
does. But you're not.
Mhm.
But if you do, don't blame
But you're
us.
not.
Anyway,
That's it, guys. I think that's all we got for y'all. Um, Hopefully you have a fantastic week, and the cadence of our episodes are still going to be up in the air a little bit. Jordan and I we're trying to figure some of that stuff out, but we definitely appreciate all of your input and your thoughts and your hopes and your dreams, and definitely hit that little subscribe button or that little bell. So anytime we do come on, if it's at a random time, you'll get a notification, which is fantastic.
Yes, because we would love to
And,
have you. Or listen to us afterwards too.
and
That's fine.
that's true.
So,
That's true.
all right.
All right, guys. We'll talk
See
to you
ya.
later.